How do we pick up the idea that we're not good enough? In the last video, we went through the story of how we begin our lives feeling all sensations and emotions naturally, but we begin to pick up the message that that way is not acceptable. We exacerbate this by fixating on the emotions themselves rather than what we think about them. So if you think about it, at the moment, we say things like, I'm feeling happy, sad, anxious because of whatever reason. If that emotion was positive, then we're not really fussed. We just enjoy being in that emotion. However, if we feel a negative emotion, we sit there analysing, going, why am I feeling like this? Nobody else is feeling like this. What's going on? We hence spin ourselves into a cycle of convincing ourselves what the reason might be, rather than just letting the chemical reaction go through us in the 90 seconds that it naturally lasts. We're basically giving ourselves a message that feeling certain emotions isn't acceptable, and if we do feel them, then we're not good enough. Because we should be feeling the positive emotions more and repressing down the negative emotions that naturally occur. So with defining and how we process emotions dealt with, we now turn to events in our lives that shaped this way of thinking, which leads us to trauma. Now before we begin discussing trauma, I wanted to express the fact that we're not looking to blame anybody here, nor revisit these for the sake of them, or downplay any trauma that you've experienced in your life so far. We're just looking for clues that have led us to our current state. So how I'd currently define trauma is that it's anything that causes us to suppress any part of our true selves, and therefore trauma can be thought of anything that leads us to believe at a subconscious level that we're not good enough. So if we split this further into two terms called capital T trauma and small t trauma, capital T trauma is typically those headline traumas that we typically think of, like sexual abuse, physical violence, and alcohol abuse. So if you think of a scale from 0 to 10, these would typically score between 8 and 10. Small t trauma can be practically anything that happens to a kid, depending on how it was interpreted at the time. So on the same scale, you're talking these items having a score between 1 and 7. So examples could be a good friend laughing at us, a parent making a flippant joke, a caregiver telling us the idea that we're bad or stupid, or even a grandparent rewarding us for being special. Now these two definitions, and in particular small t trauma, gives us more scope to look for experiences in life that have shaped how we process emotions today. But our challenge at the moment is when we use words like abuse, neglect and trauma, they carry certain connotations that we might not readily associate with our childhoods because we don't want to think of them as being traumatic. My own childhood was filled with happy emotions and laughter and memories, yet I reached my early 30s and found that I had a lot of stuff stored in my shadow. So, how can we meet this challenge? Find out in the next video.